Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Chapek has been renewed. His contract extended by the Walt Disney Company Board of Directors for an additional 3 years going through 2025. Now, if you've been watching this channel for some time, since we've been here on YouTube for the last 16 months, I guess at this point, we've been talking about Bob Chapek. We've been talking about Disney. And one of the overwhelming things that we've been discussing here is the likelihood that Bob Chapek would be renewed for a variety of factors. Now, we're not always right about everything that we try to predict because we do try to put Hollywood through the business and financial lens of reality. Sometimes those business metrics are going to turn out to be right, and sometimes they're not. But we do the best guesswork we can. And in a very crazy statement that I'm about to make, and I want everybody to sit back and just kind of take a deep breath and listen to what I'm about to say. For all the reasons that we thought for so many months, based on business and financial metrics, that Kathleen Kennedy would be let go last year when her contract came up for renewal, well, they're the same business metrics and news items and financial metrics that we saw that Bob Chapek would be renewed. And I know that sounds nuts, but if you listen to this channel long enough, you'll start picking up on the nuances and things like that and listening to the things that we talk about. This is why we have some of the guests on here that we do, because we try to take a lot of the fandom out of the conversation to at least as much degree as we can and just simply live with the math. Now, inexplicable things happen because at the end of the day, this does involve some pieces of Hollywood. But when it comes to the actual business side of the Walt Disney Company, the investors, the board of directors, Wall Street, and just the general public is going to make those decisions based on how they vote for the board and how the board in turn votes for a CEO. Now, it'd be very unusual for the Walt Disney Company in any regard to dismiss a CEO after only one term of service. The Walt Disney Company has had very few CEOs since Walt Disney himself passed away. And I didn't think anything was going to change here with Bob Chapek, particularly since he only got about the last year or so, really less than that, about the last 7 months, to actually work his magic unencumbered by his predecessor, Robert Iger. And we've started to see some signs of change. And even through all the turmoil and chaos that befell Bob Chapek a few months ago during the whole Florida politics situation that we extensively covered here, that was about the lowest point in history that I had predicted since I've been on YouTube that Chapek might not get renewed. But I don't think I lowered my projections lower than 50-50. Since then, we've had a lot of changes and a lot of things that have come up that we have since also discussed here on this channel, including the Peter Rice firing. And I think that was a very, very big harbinger of what was to come. And this week, as Walt Disney's board meets at a board retreat in Orlando, Florida, we knew something was coming, and we've got the news. So before we get into the discussion with WDW Pro, I must say thank you all, as we now have gotten over 10,000 subscribers. And I couldn't have done this without you guys and girls watching the channel. We did a great live stream on Sunday. And I want to remind everybody, if you want to catch the replay of that live stream, if you missed it, where we discussed a lot of items and topics with folks like Midnight's Edge, WDW Pro, Drunk 3PO stopped by, many other great friends and guests of the channel. We had a great time. Please go watch that. It is over on the archive channel, Renegade Online. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can go check out the 10,000 live stream celebration. Want to thank everybody for being here, and without further ado, let's get into this.
And it begs the question, if they wanted to get this out of the way, if they wanted people to know that Chapek's sticking around, what is the next shoe to fall from this board and from this CEO, this beleaguered CEO who many in the mainstream, many in the access media, many in the trades, many in the Hollywood publications have been saying that he's going down. Well, guess what? He's not going down. He's in the driver's seat. And in my opinion, it may be time for a little Chapek revenge.
Oh, yeah. And Hollywood is... well, let's just say it what it is. Hollywood is pissed at this. If you thought Hollywood was pissed about Peter Rice getting fired, y'all get ready, because this is going to be funny. Renegade Online. All right, folks, welcome back. It's another great day here at Valliant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video that are not yet subscribed, you're definitely going to want to subscribe when you see this one. At least I hope so, because we have got some fun stuff to cover today. We, of course, put Hollywood through the business and financial lens of reality. So make sure you hit the subscribe, the like button, share this video out on the social medias, please. And of course, do leave a comment before you head out the door today. And with me again, my buddy, WDW Pro from ThatParkPlace.com. Link will be in the description below. And if you have not seen WDW Pro on this channel before, well, then you're in for a treat, because we have some news. Mr. Bob Chapek, Disney CEO, has been renewed for another 3 years, kind of as we thought he would. So, Pro, welcome aboard. We got some stuff to talk about.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. I'm surprised. I thought this was supposed to be a down day in the news, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't supposed to be renewed until September. But how things can change when a company wants to change.
Yes, and I don't know if they would have held out all the way till September, although it would have been possible. I would have thought that we definitely would have had an official announcement prior to the fiscal quarter 3 financial data that should be released sometime in early to mid-August. So by that, I mean like the quarterly stock report, right? So we're just closing out the second fiscal calendar quarter, which is the third fiscal quarter for the Walt Disney Company on June 30th. So they would report sometime in the first week or two of August. I figured sometime in maybe late July or something like that, we would get that pop. This was definitely surprising to come this early, but we had a Disney board retreat this week, and we're going to talk about this because events of a couple of weeks ago pointed directly at this happening. If you could read between the tea leaves, it was right there in front of all of us. And that had to do with what we talked about before with Mr. Peter Rice being sacked unceremoniously and hilariously from the Walt Disney Company. And a lot of people talking about how that was, Bob Chapek getting rid of his, competition and all this. And it was just so mean. And, okay, there's a little bit more to it than that, folks. There
are a number of converging issues coming up with this renewal. So if you think about it, you've got the situation with Lightyear, where the one studio above all other studios that went public to try to take down Chapek, where their movie is now underperforming at historic levels. Okay? And and truly, this is at historic levels.
It is the worst Pixar performance ever.
So it's going to be under The Good Dinosaur. Oh, you don't even have to adjust. If you take out the Pixar movies that debuted inside the pandemic, okay, so it's no fair to count stuff that went to Disney Plus and didn't go to the box office. That's just crazy. Stuff that went to the box office outside of the pandemic, okay, that actually got to be on screens. This movie is going to come so far below any of those movies. It's going to come in at the most at 2/3 of the lowest ever Pixar movie, and that's not even adjusted for inflation, because movie ticket prices are far higher today than they were then. So this is abysmal. It is a colossal failure. At the same time, you have the issues with Florida, in which Disney has been playing the political cat and mouse with the political situation down there, where the legislature took actions that the Walt Disney Company did not like. Disney went very public with that. Well, guess where the board is? The board is vacationing, let's say, in Orlando, Florida, when they're making this decision. The other thing that's happening, this is so wonderful, all of these different things happening at once. The other thing is that the board made this decision at the beginning of their retreat, of their vacay in the Sunshine State. That means the board has more stuff, more things that they want to do.
I believe it's a week-long retreat, I think. Yeah.
It is a week-long retreat, and it begs the question, if they wanted to get this out of the way, if they wanted people to know that Chapek's sticking around, what is the next shoe to fall from this board and from this CEO, this beleaguered CEO, who many in the mainstream, many in the access media, many in the trades, many in the Hollywood publications have been saying that he's going down. Well, guess what? He's not going down. He's in the driver's seat. And in my opinion, it may be time for a little Chapek revenge.
Oh, yeah. And Hollywood is, well, let's just say it what it is. Hollywood is pissed at this. If you thought Hollywood was pissed about Peter Rice getting fired, y'all get ready, because this is going to be funny. This is the first day this news has come out. So we're probably going to see a lot more tomorrow, because they kind of dropped this news. It was about, I think, 1:30 Pacific, 3:30, Central, 4:30 East. So they didn't put this out first thing in the morning. They let this ride out. So I think we're going to see a lot more responses come tomorrow. We're going to see a lot more reaction tomorrow. Puck magazine doesn't even have a piece on this yet, which is what I was really waiting for to see. But we are going to talk about some of this, because I think we need to take a little bit of a walk back in time real quickly to remind everybody kind of how we got to this point. And
maybe we need to play the wind chime sound so that everybody knows we're doing a flashback.
God. Yeah, maybe. But from that perspective, okay, look, Chapek came in early 2020. Iger was supposed to be on his way out. His predecessor, Robert Iger. Then the coup hit, right? Then Iger decided to stick around and be co-CEO for the next, effectively, 2 years. He stayed on as the chairman of the board until December of 2021, meaning that Bob Chapek really has only had this level of autonomy for the last 6 months, roughly. So not a lot of time. And that was one of the things that the board recognized. We're going to talk about that in a minute as well. We covered all the crap that they got themselves involved in back in March with the whole Florida mess. Again, Bob Chapek's initial response to that was, we love and respect all of our employees, but we decided we didn't want to be involved in politics. I'm paraphrasing, but it ain't by much. Then his hand got forced by the more radical elements that Robert Iger left behind, like a time bomb at Disney, that then went off. Pixar, as you mentioned, Pro, was amongst the most vocal and hateful of the group, and dragged Lightyear into the public sphere back in March when they went to Variety magazine and just complained and whined to the high heavens that every quote-unquote instance of overtly gay affection, as the Pixar staff described, was removed from their films by Disney executives once it left Pixar. Well, there's only 3 Disney executives there that have that power that are above Pixar. One is Alan Bergman, chairman of Disney Studios. Number 2 is Kareem Daniel, who is head of all Disney distribution content, which has a tremendous amount of power handed down to him from Chapek, and then Chapek himself. So that was
the battery. That was the battery, the funneling system that Chapek had set up, because both of those guys are Chapek people.
Right.
So his plan was quite ingenious. They didn't like his plan, obviously, but the plan was for all of these studios, as they were making content that was prohibitive to Disney's goal of having a lucrative business, right? That would appeal to the broadest demographics possible. All of that content, as it came through, it would be shuffled up through that battery. It kept it away from Chapek, and he didn't have to take all the dirt on him. But these studios figured it out, right? They figured out that, hey, we're not able to get through these sort of culturally divisive ideas into our properties that we want. And rather than using the chain of command, rather than staying inside the company, because that wasn't going to be successful, they decided to organize via Twitter accounts and walkout movements and statements to the press. They decided to attempt a mutiny. And the bad thing is, if you want to attempt such a thing, you better get rid of the captain of your ship, because Chapek's at the wheel.
Yeah, and it did not fare well for them at the time, because, again, and that's why they felt like they had to go public to get that out there. They then forced the hand by getting the Hollywood press and politicians and everybody from the left to go in, and they did this Disney walkout. And, of course, there was a couple hundred people that did that. There wasn't that many. They forced the hand, and then they let the sequences back into Lightyear that we just got, which, of course, tanked at the box office for a variety of reasons. Again, to be fair, but I don't think that discrediting that one reason that spent a month in the news cycle, is a good idea, because it spent a month in the news cycle. Everybody talked about it. Everybody saw it. It was there constantly.
You cannot fail this badly with Lightyear unless
No.
unless you have failed at every possible level. So
Yeah.
when someone says to you, well, here's what I think is wrong with Lightyear, your answer should be yes, because you could continue on for about 100 reasons before you come up with something that you go, actually, maybe that's not an adequate reason. But yes, it is the backlash. Yes, it is going far beyond any kind of kiss and putting a situation where mommies and daddies have to explain to their small children how babies are born. Yes, it is that you got rid of Tim Allen. Yes, I can keep going.
I know.
The problem is that the people who came up with this strategy, which is a completely failed strategy, the people who came up with this strategy are the same people who are going up against Chapek.
Yep.
So one side has won, one side has not. Now we just have to find out, what is Chapek going to do now that he's no longer a lame duck. He is an empowered CEO, empowered by a unanimous decision by the board, a unanimous decision that came early from the board. So he has a tremendous amount of cachet that he can spend.
He does indeed. And, to go back, on that whole situation, yes, Chapek came out and made that what we called the hostage video. And that was a mistake that both you and I agreed upon. And I think at the time, that was the first moment that I felt like there was, I'm not going to say that I thought his renewal was in doubt. I was just less confident about it at that point. However, you and I have also since then recognized the fact that since that happened, since the leaks occurred from Christopher Rufo with the Reimagine Tomorrow critical race theory program that again, these Pixar, all these people, these are all still Bob Iger's people. These are still Robert Iger's people there. The Ton Newtons, the Peter Rices, all this kind of stuff that he kept around after the Fox purchase. These were all from that Hollywood cabal, right? Since then, they've been very quiet, and they got very quiet very quickly. And that was the first sign that I said, okay, something is going on, because it once that got out, all that shut down. The crazies over there at Pixar, and the ones that walked out, and the ones at Lucasfilm that walked out, and all this, and the ones that were generating these headlines, just on and on and on, all of a sudden got very quiet, and they have been quiet the last few months. And I said, that is not going without recognition, at least on my part. And then Lightyear drops, and it tanks. And I said this on our show Together Sunday that we did the live stream, was that this is kind of a backhanded feather in Chapek's cap that this movie cracked. Because it basically validated, at least at some degree, his decision and Kareem Daniels' decision to strike certain elements from the movie, because it would probably not play well to a wide enough audience.
Now, VR, according to the mainstream press, you no longer deserve a seat at the debate table.
I know. I don't care.
You scallywag. Let me say though, you had a great point there. I had not thought about the hostage video. That thing is orchestrated. Everything is orchestrated, and all the messaging and all the communications are orchestrated inside a corporation as big as Disney. Chapek is a person who is an outsider. He's not an insider in Hollywood. He's never been a Hollywood guy. He's got all of these people from the Hollywood influence circle trying to take him out. Any way they can, they're taking him down. So he's got to be feeling that. He's not enjoying it. The communications team puts him in that hostage video, and he's reading off a teleprompter. It's all scripted. It gets leaked. I'm thinking that may have been a turning point where he saw that and he said, screw all of this. Screw all of this. He already wanted to moderate the company, but now, and I know that we're talking about a business. I know we're talking about money, but emotions are real. And you can't tell me that after that hostage video, that if he has any pride in himself, and he does, and if he has any desire to have an excellent image, and you better believe he does, that he didn't look at that hostage video and go, they no longer have my interests at heart, and I'm going to fix this.
Yeah, I think it got him mad, especially when it leaked. I think he felt like, okay, fine, he's getting put into a corner. And I think I even said at the time that, again, that kind of response was not Chapek's decision. Chapek's maneuver was what we got at the beginning, which was, we're going to stay out of politics. He's been wanting to try to get this company back to the center because Robert Iger spent so many years moving it hard to the left. And Chapek is now dealing with the fallout. It took years to get it that way. It's going to take a few years to get it back. And people have to be patient. But I think when that went out, and I think especially with this Lightyear flop, after Chapek and Kareem Daniel had said initially that Pixar admitted themselves that they had pulled the content out of that movie, Chapek got the backhanded feather in his cap. Yeah, Lightyear failed. And he got to look at that board and go, I told you so. And that's the bottom line.
Isn't it funny? Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny that this board retreat comes in this approximation, in this time frame behind Lightyear? Isn't it funny how we're getting to see the effect of the narrative and the effect of the strategy in real time, and the board is responding to it in real time? It's just fascinating.
Yeah. It is.
And let's say too that you brought up Iger. Not everybody's going to know this. So Iger was, in my opinion, in my estimation, an excellent CEO for the majority of his tenure. But it needs to be said that towards the end, he wanted to potentially run for the presidency of the United States as a Democratic candidate.
Yep.
And he had to clear the primaries. So if he was going to compete in the primaries of the Democrat Party, he needed to move the Walt Disney Company far to the left. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are. That's why these sort of poison pills for Chapek exist now, is because Iger politicized the company at the very end for his own political ambitions. So just to clarify that point.
No, and I'm glad you do that, because, we since we started this discussion months ago, we've got literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of new viewers on this channel, video by video. Not, we crossed the 10,000 subs, but the video average views have gone or now closing in on 10,000 per video. So we've got a lot of new eyeballs.
You're quite successful, Mr. Renegade.
I tried.
Doing a great job. By the way, it's because of videos like this where you're explaining to the audience what's really going on. And you have to think that people in the audience have been perhaps reading these different pieces in the media that were pointing all in the opposite direction. They come here. You've been pointing towards the truth. You're not someone who looks into the future and is psychic, but you've just been reading the tea leaves accurately. So why would people not come to you?
Hopefully they will continue to. But like I said, I think this kind of, again, why we did the walk down history lane here, or memory lane, as it were, was to kind of bring some of the folks that are new to the channel up to speed on the things that we have been covering here, you and I together, Cameron Pasha, when he's been able to make it. And again, I actually did talk to Cameron today. Cameron is still very busy working on a professional writing project, and he can't come on to YouTube, as I've mentioned to some folks. He can't come on and talk Hollywood politics. He says hi to everybody. He wishes he could be here today. I wish he could be here today. Pro wishes he could be. We wanted to have this kind of fun three-way conversation, but as it he just can't right now. Hopefully one day he'll be able to come back and do this, because we had a lot of fun. But that being said,
so let me say,
we spent a lot of time covering this.
I have no insider info. I haven't talked to him about what's in his contract, so I can just guess. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to guess that when you work on a project, I'm just going to guess that in the contract that they have some stipulations that would prevent you from opining on the latest breaking news regarding a major CEO of an entertainment corporation. So let me just make that guess. I have no knowledge whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
You can't go out there and talk Hollywood politics while you're. That's what's going on. And Cameron has, I think, stated that on his Patreon. Although I don't want to get into any more details than that, but as when Cameron was here, y'all can check out his Patreon. We're going to be talking about some of the stuff on his Patreon in just a minute. But after all that happened, then a few weeks ago, after a couple of months of silence, a bomb went off at Disney, and it was a bomb that people like me, I fell out of my chair laughing my butt off. And the people in Hollywood absolutely were just outright pissed. And freaked out. And that was this. And the Chapek purge began. Now, of course, part of this, I think the timing, and I can't stress this enough, although I don't want to deviate into this because we could probably talk 20, 30 minutes on this subject alone. But I think the timing of the entire David Zaslav purge at Warner Media, which I haven't really talked about in a while because we've been so busy with Disney stuff, and I'm not a full-time YouTuber. I wish I had more time. But I think this has given Chapek a lot of license to get things done. Although the situations between Disney and Warner are strikingly different. And I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that Chapek is going to turn around tomorrow and start going full Zaslav on everybody at Disney. That's not going to happen. Warner Brothers is in a totally different situation, having been spun off from a parent company, merged in with another company, and that other company's CEO was given carte blanche to go in there and right the ship. This is not quite the same situation. This is not going to be quite as drastic, although this may happen over the next couple of years under Chapek. We shall see. But I wanted to bring this article up from Puck, Chapek's purge and the WAPO aftermath. This was regarding his firing, and let's be clear again, also with the consent and approval of the board of directors, the firing of Peter Rice, because Chapek cannot just crap can a high-level executive like Peter Rice that would involve an 8-figure payout without getting board approval, at least from the executive committee. And the other member of the executive committee besides Chapek is Susan Arnold, the chairman. Okay? So to be clear, this was done in advance with the approval of the chairman of the board. I have no doubt in my mind.
And Valliant, let's just say for the audience, they may not know this. This was not just any old firing. Not only was Peter Rice a major executive, but in these sorts of situations, usually what a company will do is try to manage this in an amicable way so that you can separate on friendly terms. You come up with an excuse for why this had to happen, or it's worked through attorneys, or it's worked through consultants to figure out how to do this. There's some word given beforehand to the major executive. No. Bob Chapek frog marched Peter Rice into his office, and in a utter surprise to this major Hollywood executive, fired him face to face across the table with no reason given other than, we don't want you here. So just so everybody understands, it wasn't just the firing, it was symbolic.
It was. And this from Dylan Byers at Puck Magazine, and I have another one to follow up briefly from Matthew Belloni right after this. Chapek was direct and unsentimental on Thursday's call, sources who participated in the meeting said. He told Rice's direct reports, meaning the staff that worked under Peter Rice that reported directly to him, quote, "I've made a decision," this is Chapek speaking, "and Peter is leaving the company. Rice's unit, Disney General Entertainment, needed, quote, a more collaborative leader," closed quote. He didn't beat around the bush. Your boss was a jerk, and he gone. Okay? That's what that means. And Hollywood did not like this. Now, again, I'm going to stipulate, as I have before when I bring up articles from Puck. Puck is a tremendous website that has legit Hollywood connections. One of the partners at Puck is Matthew Belloni. We're going to pull his article up next. The former editor of The Hollywood Reporter. He went independent to create this. That man has a legitimate, very high-level slate of contacts in Hollywood. The kind that he does an article a few weeks ago where he picks up the phone and calls Alan Horn to ask him about, hey, are you going to Warner Brothers? It's a great piece. Because there was rumors speculating that he might go back to Warner Brothers or something like that. And he's like, well, I just picked up the phone and called the guy, and we went and had coffee. I mean, that's what you're dealing with. So I don't agree politically with everything Belloni says. He's still very much a Hollywood-type personality. He's very much to the left. So he and I probably wouldn't agree on a lot of political issues, which is fine. But I have tremendous respect for the man and the information that he delivers. But the point of bringing this up, Hollywood, as he well knows, was not a happy camper when it came to this, okay? And then this is the one from Belloni 3 days later, Peter Rice fallout, all eyes on the Disney board. And this is where they started coming in and saying, this is where the story really started beefing up. Saying that, okay, well, Chapek came out and took out his political rival inside Disney. And the board, and this is what Hollywood was saying, that Belloni, I think relatively well speaks for the attitudes of Hollywood. You know, confusingly, the board comes out and issues the next day a vote of confidence in Bob Chapek. And that's where I kind of went full stop, and I'm like, okay, he's definitely getting renewed. That's it. It's over. It's done. The board at Disney has already agreed, if not on paper, in a formal vote documented by the general secretary of the company, they have agreed in principle verbally that definitely Chapek is getting renewed. They were definitely part of this decision to get rid of Peter Rice. And here we are. I mean, and this is the kind of attitude I want everybody to pay attention to think, again, that Bob Chapek bends the knee and he's part of this crowd. I need y'all to put that in the back of your mind for a minute and just listen, because Hollywood hates Chapek. They have hated Chapek from the get-go, and now they kind of don't understand the board either. And this is from Matt Belloni. Again, this is his opinion, and he basically laments the makeup of the board. And he says, let's take a look. You know, maybe the board will offer more clarity in its formal meeting, meaning the one going on right now. Again, this was written 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Until then, the town is still perplexed by the Rice sacking and how ham-fistedly Chapek seemed to handle it. Perhaps there's more to the backstory, and rumors are flying about which Disney executives may have been whispering in Chapek's mouse ears. But the makeup of the board is certainly a factor here. Let's take a quick look at Disney's 10 non-Chapek board members and their background. He says non-Chapek, the other board members that are not Bob Chapek himself, just in case anybody's confused. And they go through the list. You know, of course, we got Susan Arnold, the chair, so on and so forth, MasterCard, Cisco, General Motors, Carlyle Group, Lululemon, Oracle, Illumina, Family Services, SunTrust Bank, Chase Manhattan Bank, Nike, CVS, Eli Lilly, and Target. Okay? Those are the people involved in the board. Now, I want you to listen to what he says, because this does represent Hollywood's attitude. This is why they can't stand the guy. See a pattern here? Retail, automotive, biotech, stretchy pants, but not a single independent board member or director with extensive media or entertainment experience. Good! Disney is not a Hollywood studio. They're a multinational conglomerate of entertainment that runs theme parks, primarily merchandise as a secondary source of income, and probably a tied for second is linear content delivery through things like ESPN and ABC, like all their professional sports. Hollywood studio content is down the list when it comes to what Disney makes its money off of, what generates operating income. And I found this fascinating, Pro. Because, I mean, I think this expresses the Hollywood attitude towards people like Chapek and Disney right now. Like, why aren't you one of us anymore? Like Robert Iger was.
You can't really blame creatives and people who are involved in the creative process for wishing that there was someone in that role who shared their same experiences. But what you can say is that it requires some degree of naivete to be surprised that business people are running a business. That's all you can say.
That's it. That's it. A board like this can't really be expected to understand how Hollywood works. Back to the article here. How much of a people and relationship business this is. How the gatekeepers of the talent community must at least be placated. How much the optics matter, how the chatter around town can ultimately doom a leader. The entertainment business is a unique animal, and given the way it's covered by the media, things like issuing a vote of confidence in a CEO without actually renewing his deal can easily create a narrative that is exactly the opposite of what's intended. Here's the hint, Hollywood. They don't give a poop. They don't care. They don't give a crap. They don't care what you think in Hollywood anymore. Okay? At least for the personnel. At least they're doing their own thing. And I think that is what Chapek has been trying to do, is to get this company back to the center ground since he's been in there. And it's just going to take time. You know, and he goes on to say the board composition wasn't necessarily an issue when the CEO was Iger, because he was the ultimate entertainment insider, the ultimate Hollywood insider is what you should read that as. But Chapek is a Disney guy, not a Hollywood guy. So as of now, effectively, none of the decision makers at the world's biggest entertainment company have a meaningful background in entertainment. That seems like a problem. End. Peace. Curtain.
You know what's really funny? This almost mirrors the way that politics were covered, in which it seems like the Hollywood insiders want to reflect on Bob Iger as if he is Barack Obama. They want to treat Chapek as if he is the replacement for Barack Obama. It's really interesting to watch, right? Chapek is an outsider, and when he makes a decision, they instantly speculate as to who must have put this in his ear. He cannot be his own agent in the actions that he takes. And Iger, he was the beloved. He was the ultimate insider. It's just interesting to see the different ways that these two men are being presented. And let me say also that for those of you just listening, we've done videos, Valliant and I, on Peter Rice and why this was a major firing. But just to summarize it easily, Peter Rice was one of the chief architects of diversity, equity, inclusion programs in Disney and also all throughout Hollywood. So to fire him in such a way as what we've described is a critical hit against the people who believe in that ideology, believe in that movement, believe in that social cause. So this is hitting them in a different way than if it was just somebody who ran a studio and had creative decisions that they agreed with. This is hitting them squarely in their emotions and in what they truly believe in. That's fine, but you just need to understand that's why there's such a visceral reaction.
And it's also going to limit the scope, I believe, especially now that Chapek is no longer a quote-unquote lame duck. It's certainly going to limit the scope of Dana Walden, Peter Rice's replacement, who is up for renewal, has not been renewed yet this year. And everybody started saying, well, she's just as bad as Peter Rice and all this. Well, she didn't sit on the board of the Walter Kites Foundation, number one. And she wasn't actively working, at least up to that point, inside the company to undermine Bob Chapek, which Peter Rice seemingly absolutely was. So we shall see. And again, people's personal politics I don't care about. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, that's fine. Do what you want to do. Just don't bring it to work. That's it. It's very simple. Very, very simple. Don't bring it to work. We're here to make money. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pro.
Well, I was just going to say, you're covering the business side of Disney. You're covering the business side of Hollywood. Some of these people don't want to treat their job and their career and what they're doing as a business.
Correct.
There was one analyst out there who was talking about how if you don't understand, Hollywood is all about the awards shows, and Hollywood has to be more and more progressive and can never stop being progressive. Hollywood, it's baked into the cake. And that's what it's all about. That's what the entire film industry is about. If you don't understand it, then you don't understand movie making. Well, I'm here to say movie making is a business, and you have to treat it as such. The people that are standing in Chapek's way are not necessarily interested in the fiduciary responsibilities to the company like the CEO and the board are. They know that they have to provide a return on investment for the shareholders, and they're going to do that. And it may take some navigating. It's a big ship. But ultimately, if they are going to stay in their positions of power, they are going to work to provide that profit that drives the machine.
Exactly. And some of that may be what we would consider woke content. Some of it may still be. But in terms of Disney itself being a hyper left-wing organization, or as they have seemed to be driving themselves toward, or at least some of the employees that have too big of a microphone have been driving themselves towards. Because got to remember, I'm going to bring this article in real quick because, again, this kind of goes to the heart of some of the attitude, and I want to read through it. But Variety, embattled Disney CEO Bob Chapek gets a contract extension. And of course, Variety being Variety, there's a lot of language in here that suggests that they are none too happy with this, as you would expect. So this is why I said, on the heels of firing Peter Rice, which, according to Puck and all these, Deadline, Variety, left the town reeling. People were shocked, stunned. Oh my God. Remember, all these folks hated it when Bob Chapek was named CEO back in 2020. Now they're hating him even more. So, can't have it both ways. Bob Chapek is either trying to, if the Hollywood people all loved Bob Chapek, adored him, then I'd be worried. They hate him. They flipping hate the guy. And that is not going to change anytime soon. But you can see, there were several missteps, a near staff revolt. Most notably, when Chapek dealt with a near staff revolt in the wake of his botched response to a parental rights and education bill. I'm not even going to say the stupid, erroneous title to it anymore.
It does get old. Let me just say, it does get old when they reframe the name of the bill. It has nothing to do with politics to me. But if I'm going to read something and it's going to be objective news, just tell me the actual name of it and then tell me what both sides might call it.
Right, exactly.
You can say, I'm not going to say the names because I don't know how that'll affect your YouTube algorithm.
It doesn't anymore. I've used it all the time. It's fine.
Just call out the name of the bill, then tell us what both sides call it, and be unbiased. It's not that hard.
And I want to address specifically the issue that Variety puts in here is most notably with a near staff revolt. I'm sorry. What near staff revolt? Disney is a company with over 80,000 employees, and there were like 200 of them that got pissed off. That's like one table in the lunchroom. Half a table in the lunchroom when it comes to Disney employees. That's ridiculous. It's
but the one guy who showed up at the Walt Disney World gates, he held a really big sign.
It was really big. The one guy at Walt Disney World Resort, and there were 16 cameras there, and one guy. It was like a big sign. It was like a Joe Biden presidential campaign rally.
I'm pretty sure he used the largest Sharpie that they make.
I think they probably did. So yeah, again, this is gaslighting. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a bunch of bunk. And yes, it caused some issues with Florida. But yes, I also think that there's probably been a lot of conversation since then, since the waters have calmed, between the higher ups at Disney and the people that work for DeSantis, if not DeSantis himself. They're just not going to publicly say anything at this point. Disney's not going anywhere. They're not leaving Florida, and they will be able to recertify their special district, as again, like Pro and I have discussed before, like Legal Mindset and I have discussed before. They will simply be recertifying under the newer set of rules, which is the set of rules that everybody else but Disney has had to play under for the last 40 plus years. So nothing big is going to change there. But we got the same kind of attitude from Deadline. As much as I cite Deadline's box office, Anthony D'Alessandro does a fantastic job over there. Deadline, of course, when it comes to their editorial side in Hollywood politics, again, does tend to be very much anti-Chapek in that regard. But you got very similar language here. And then you got the Hollywood Reporter. Hollywood Reporter tends to be Chapek's most favorable place in terms of how they report, and I found their article to be relatively matter-of-fact, which was very nice. It didn't go into, the Chapek screwed this up and did this, and it didn't have the angry language of especially Variety. This was much more matter-of-fact. But this is where we are right now, and I want to bring up something else, showing again here, Disney's board of directors announced the new 3-year contract extension Tuesday. The decision was unanimous. The contract begins on July 1st and runs into 2025. Now, his original contract was due to expire in February of 23, I believe, or January of 23. This will push it out extensively to January, February of 2025. So just everybody's on the same page. It's a 3-year contract. But we talked about Cameron earlier. And, Cameron had brought this up, and I talked to him today, and he said we could use this. This is from his Patreon, so we'll leave Cameron's Patreon link as below. And, Cameron and I have talked about Chapek would get renewed. We've been talking about that for some time. But one of the things in here, Pro, and I'd like you to comment on some of this stuff. I received a direct message from one of our Patreon members, and I have it on good authority, quote, I have it on good authority that behind the scenes, Chapek has never stopped telling Disney executives that his goal is to move the company towards the political middle. This is not a matter of him pretending to be woke to, quote, fool the board into an extension. They know and agree fully with his plans for Disney over the next 3 years. And then he updated that shortly before we started recording. Regarding the previous message from another colleague, so this is another source at Disney, it's absolutely true. Disney is shifting away from woke, and you can see it in Miss Marvel, a show that was extensively reshot due to Chapek's orders. I haven't seen it. I have no idea. But this is the part, the Disney Plus movie Rise and many others, even ESPN is shifting away from the woke. People have to be patient. So again, right or wrong, indifferent, I don't know. That's just what somebody has reported to him, that he has understood to work for Disney. Saying this. And again, the thing about Chapek, I think, is the key there in terms of he's been wanting to get Disney back to the middle ground, shifting back to a more distribution-based focus, as opposed to letting the artists just do anything and everything they want. But the things that we're getting right now, the things like Lightyear and this other movie coming later this year, and things like Kenobi or anything else that we're seeing right now, these were all greenlit and put into production and written years ago. So it's going to still take some time to see those changes come up.
Well, let's just say that it seems interesting to me that the board, despite being filled with business people, and I say that a little bit sarcastically, is savvy enough to choose as the head of the board a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, Susan Arnold, so that when Bob Chapek makes these decisions and when heads begin to roll and when the preferred narrative of Hollywood is not accepted at Disney, they can go back to her and say, well, she's a member of that community and she approved it. I also think it's interesting. It really goes to show how clever they are, because when they got rid of Peter Rice, you're right, they went to Miss Walden, and her contract is up for renewal. It does not have to be renewed. But they were able to say, well, we put a woman into the place that Peter Rice held. And so what they're doing is they are confounding the Hollywood elite, because although Bob Chapek, a white, straight male, is making these decisions, they have the ability to go back and say, but these decisions are being verified and authorized by the same people that you purport to hold in high esteem and want to raise up. So what say you, Hollywood elite? And so I just think it's a marvelous plan by marvelously successful business people helming this company. Whatever you think of what they're doing, you may disagree with what they're doing, but you can't take it away from them that they're playing the game very well.
Indeed they are. And again, time will tell. And again, is this any kind of guarantee that the next 3 years of Chapek and the changes that we see in the type of content that Disney is putting out that you get substantially better? And we don't know yet. My point in this whole thing is that this is the first year that he's really been able to get his feet under him. And I don't think it's any accident that as soon as people like Iger left, but all of Iger's people were still in place, left behind in very high-level positions. It didn't take them but a couple of months to start going on the offensive against Bob Chapek. And the idea, to kind of close this, the idea was to get him so rattled that he would completely cave, the board would replace him. And it seemed like that, at least for a little bit there, that something, like I said, that when he had to make the hostage video, there was some concern there that, okay, well, maybe this is it. Maybe they have cracked him. But when everything after that went very silent, and we didn't hear anything else out of the crazies over there for a couple of months, especially after, and I think Christopher Rufo leaking those Reimagine Tomorrow videos had a tremendous amount, if not everything, to do with it.
Bob Chapek needs to invite him over for burgers or steaks. I don't know what they're going to grill, but
yeah. He does. He does. I think that the tide turned at that point because the public backlash against that was tremendous, even though if they don't want to admit it. But again, to be clear, Chapek kind of got at that moment see, I told you guys so, talking to the board. We should not have done this. We should have stuck with the original message, which was, we love all of our employees. Whatever they do with themselves is fine. We're not getting engaged in politics. They have got to get back into that. They have got to get off of this. Now, I think they've already stuck their foot in their mouth for this election cycle, saying that they were going to stop political campaign contributions in Florida and reassess things. Maybe they quietly open that up behind the scenes again. Maybe something changes. I think it will. I think they either have to do all or nothing. Either they stop making campaign contributions everywhere, or they keep making campaign contributions everywhere. I don't think they can have it both ways. But I think they're trying to dig themselves out of this. And I think they're starting to realize that the public, there's a lot more of the public on their side for wanting to get rid of a lot of this politicization. Because I think up until that point, it was these Hollywood wackos and nut jobs that had been in their ear so much because of all the years Iger put these people in place, thinking that this is how the whole country is. The whole country hates you right now. Everybody hates you. You have to go out there and say that you're going to, do this and do that for this community and that community. And it's like, then they found out, that wasn't true. And especially after Lightyear came out and they advertised the fact that we got the gay kiss back in and they put the movie out in Pride Month. I'm thinking, well, that should blow this movie up, right? Worst performance in Pixar's history. So the demand that they have tried to convince the board and Chapek of that is out there for certain things and certain political elements, I just think doesn't exist. I think they're figuring that out. And I'm more than willing to give them time. I'm also willing to admit 2 or 3 years from now that I was dead wrong about the guy and that Chapek was awful and that Disney is just as bad today, 3 years from now, than it was today, at that point. So we'll see where it goes. But Pro, I appreciate you being here. Any final thoughts on any of this?
We've been very pro Bob Chapek in this video today. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that I want to be careful that the audience understands we're not saying that Bob Chapek is the perfect CEO. We're not saying that he is in every way going to restore the Walt Disney Company to whatever your ideal might be. Mm-hmm. I don't like certain things about Bob Chapek or his leadership. I don't know him personally, but I don't like the way that he has managed the Walt Disney World Resort. I don't care for its over monetization. I don't like the way that they have done some of their new buildings in the theme parks. Mm-hmm. I don't like people having to jump through 1,000 hoops of reservation systems to do anything, and they have to stare on their screens in the parks. But I'm not a Bob Chapek hater, just like I'm not a Robert Iger hater, just like I'm not a Pixar hater. Because when you are listening to a news source that lives inside a bubble and cannot look at all the positives and negatives, then you're not going to be able to predict accurately the future and what's going to occur. Mm-hmm. That's why I think that places like Valliant Renegade, places like ThatPark Place, and other opportunities you have to listen in on YouTube and read, I think those are the places to go because you're getting an accurate readout, because we're giving you the positive and negative. So sure, this has been mostly positive about Bob Chapek because he wants to moderate the company. Mm-hmm. But just understand there's a nuanced view about everything. And this is a very complicated situation. Still, at the end of the day, you have to say that Bob Chapek and the board and those who wanted to see Disney moderate away from politics, they are the winners of the day.
Couldn't agree more. Well said. And like I said, I think that's perfect. And again, like you said, Chapek's not going to be a perfect CEO. He's going to do things like, we get it. And we've talked about this before, like with, price elasticity at Disney. They can nickel and dime to death. You know why? Because the audiences will still show up to the parks. And it's frustrating for the people that just want to go and enjoy themselves. But I also understand from the business side that, hey, if we have a park full of people that are willing to pay an extra $50, $60 for this or that or the other thing, and they're going to do it, They're going to do it. Again, I get that people don't like it, and I'm not a fan of it either. I know Pro's not. And there are a lot of things that are going to happen in the parks or with Disney that Chapek does that people aren't going to be big fans of. But like you said, at the end of the day, this is about getting Disney back to the middle ground, being neutral, not being involved in politics, and trying to push craziness out on a corporate level. So, in any case, thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe, hit the share button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment before you head out. Make sure y'all go check out WDW Pro at ThatParkPlace.com, and they're also on Twitter as well. So, Pro, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
No problem. Everybody out there, have fun.
Take care.